Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here, Smart Business Moves, with our special guest, a regular on the show, Matt Ricketts. Hey, Matt, how are you today?
Good, Tom. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks for being here, Matt. We've got Liz over here holding down the fort. You must be exhausted. You've been doing a lot of these lately, and you were on last night with the Juno Summit, up late.
Well, not really late for me. That was 4:00 my time.
Well, it's late for me. I watched, and that was good. That's a good way to kick it off.
You know, I was thinking that Matt looks pretty darn good considering how long have you been awake right now, Matt, from your nap?
Oh, not very long, about an hour.
Can we talk about that, Matt? Do you nap like every day? Is that a normal thing?
No. If I could, I would though. But I got up early this morning. I ran, and I was up pretty early. And then we had we're in the middle of selling our house and buying another house. We had a bunch of inspections and things to go through. I was pretty tired after lunch, so I decided to take a nap. I'd had a full day. I'd been up since 5. I'd been at it for longer than most people, and a little nap was going to get me through once the kids got home at 3. It was going to need some extra energy for this day.
You were wanted to make sure that you were refreshed and on top of your game for Smart Business Moves. Smart.
Right. That and taking the kids starting after that. So we'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they do say that the smarter businessman does nap in the middle of the day. Gets up early and naps.
Okay.
So, sounds like you're nailing that, Matt.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes, but it was refreshing for sure.
So
that's my perfect nap, actually.
So we're going to be talking about all things COVID, from potential legislation to give financial relief to a number of different stakeholders that we care about, to where the disease is at the moment, how it's affecting our business. We'll jump into that in a minute. Tomorrow's On the Spot. We're going to be talking about overcoming obstacles. So we've all incurred run into obstacles within our businesses, within our lives, and have overcome them in various ways. And that's going to be our discussion for tomorrow. So be thinking about questions that you would have. Obviously, COVID has posed a number of challenges for us. 2020 has not been an easy year, so I'm sure that we're all dealing with some obstacles to come over, and we'll talk about it and hopefully come up with some good answers. You have any hints for us, Liz, as to who our guest is going to be tomorrow?
I do. So this guest told me that she designed her business from day one for her to be an absentee owner, and it's been 3 years now that she doesn't go in daily, weekly. She just pops in whenever she feels like it. I thought that was interesting, especially since she's had quite a few obstacles to overcome. I think this is one of the ways that she set up her business to be able to do that too. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that would be a good question to be asked. So
yeah,
if our audience doesn't ask it, maybe I will, because I want to hear that.
I'm going to get some questions from the MMA group tomorrow. So a couple of you guys are in MMA that are on the call right now. So you guys get ready to help me come up with some questions for this guest tomorrow.
Yep. We got our lineup all set for next week, but Liz tells me I can't talk about that today. So we'll share that with you tomorrow.
You put the secret guest name in, Tom. So that's fun. Yeah, you did. Instead of writing secret guest.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't tell me that.
And I was just letting you know who it was in the thing. But he also contacted me just like 10 minutes ago and said, "Oh, I forgot. Next week he has something else, so we might move him to the following week."
Okay.
So it's going to work out well.
Be here tomorrow, and you'll get the inside skinny on what's happening next week on Smart Business Moves.
Get the scoop.
Matt and I are working on special project. I just want to share a minute before we jump into COVID. We're both installing equipment here over the next couple of weeks that'll allow us to on-site generate cleaning products out of salt. I guess that's kind of tied into COVID, isn't it? I mean, what's for COVID, we wouldn't be doing it.
So yeah, this is we've been talking. Me and Tom had been having some daily conversations early on in this, and we had looked at on-site generation for hypochlorous acid. And what's the secondary product that is made? The degreaser?
Sodium hydroxide, which is a fancy word for lye.
Yeah, but it's a pretty good degreaser, and you know,
it's an awesome degreaser. Yeah, it's high alkaline, high pH. I mean, it's like lye. It's the same ingredient that's in lye soap.
Yeah. So basically, water goes in, salt goes in, electricity gets added. Two products as a byproduct of the chemical reaction come out, and you're making your own chemicals. So for pennies, basically per gallon, maybe not even a penny per gallon of product, you have cleaning solutions being produced on site. No more shipping water across the country. No more. You know, basically, when you're buying most chemicals, even in concentrate, you're paying, you know, a lot of it by weight for it to be shipped around, and so that's a big thing. So there's a big upfront investment in this, but we love the product. The hypochlorous acid is a great product, and we love the story that it tells about our businesses, about our going more green, doing something that's very environmentally sound. For me, it's tough because our brand is based on a cleaning line called Better Life. We're going to continue to use the Better Life, all of the stainless steel products and things like that. But for our main product, we needed a product that was a sanitizer, and at the higher levels, hypochlorous acid is a disinfectant. So at the higher parts per million of 400 parts per million typically and above is a disinfectant. So the machines that make hypochlorous acid, various different levels of parts per million of that you end up producing. So this one can go up to about 500, which would be in the disinfection range. And they have labels and are certify the product as in some way. So it's either way though, it is a disinfecting product. It's effective against COVID. It's been proven effective against lots of other bugs and things that we would want to worry about. And again, very safe, very effective. I know there's a lot of people that are on that bandwagon for that product. Some people are home brewing this stuff. There's videos on YouTube on how to make your own.
Yeah, and we had Marty Paris, who's the CEO of Annihilator. That's the company that we're buying the equipment from a couple of weeks ago, I guess. They are like just going crazy. I mean, we ordered this equipment 6 weeks ago, maybe. I mean, they're that back ordered, but schools and senior living facilities, this technology is really taking off.
Probably type in the comments to Leslie Shepard.
Yeah, it's a company called Annihilator, and we.
Tom, I'm really impressed that you nailed that.
I'm saying it correctly, aren't I?
You are.
It's not. What does it come
down?
Obvious.
It's not obvious how it's pronounced just by looking at it, for sure. So, I guess it kind of makes sense, like annihilation, annihilator. Like it's a good.
Right.
They have some really cool tools and stuff for people to use their product. Me and Tom were even talking about their software that they have. It's a really cool idea, and I don't know how to implement this if we would do this, because I feel like we have a good software solution. I don't want to give my tech something else, but it's basically gives QR codes so that in public spaces, if you do a lot of commercial cleaning with public spaces, people can walk up and just see how recently it's been cleaned, what products were used, what if the technician had any certifications. It's kind of a neat thing for public trust. So imagine putting that on an elevator where they've got a ride up and they can just take a picture of the QR code. Who knows how often that gets used? I don't know if you asked them about that on the call. Did you get into the software at all?
We didn't talk a lot about that, no. But it is a reason to believe. I mean, it's proof that the service is being provided, which is, you can't look at a surface and tell it's been disinfected or not, but they've got ways of validating that the work has been done, for us, I mean, we do work with senior living facilities, and we just felt that it's just one more thing we can do to provide a level of safety, and we felt it was a responsible thing to do. And based on our research, we believe that hypochlorous acid is the most responsible way to do electrostatic spraying.
I agree.
So that would be our go-to product there.
And the other thing I like about it is compared to some other on-site generation products, the shelf stability is a day. That's better than a lot of other on-site generation products that might be only 7 days. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, you broke up here a bit, Matt, but it was like 30 days.
Wow, that is way better.
Efficacious, yeah. So Robin and Gary Murphy use an aisle there too, and that was another validation that pushed me in their direction. And they actually leave these products with all of their clients, and the hypochlorous, they'll take like a marker and they'll write the date on it in terms of the date it was generated, and every 30 days or so, if there's anything left over, they'll dump it out and reload.
I think if you had bottles with MST labels on them, and I think the risk is incredibly low. There's very little risk to surface. There's very little risk to human. I can't imagine in a way that you'd have to really misuse it to cause any harm. Like maybe try and use it as eye drops or something like that. I mean, even then, I don't think it could hurt you. I don't know. I wouldn't want to test that. But
I've seen people for years take the stuff at like ISSA at the trade show and spray it in their eye and drink it, and then take a swab and put it in and show that it has like 1,000 parts per million of free chlorine in it. It's like, holy crap. So, and these guys keep coming back year after year, so I guess it's safe.
They're not losing their vision from the again, stuff that I don't necessarily want to test out, but I think there's I think it'd be a great leave behind piece for your customers. It'd be about the same risk as leaving them a bar of soap, basically. Like that, and honestly, if you ever got sued by that and someone said, how did you misuse this? Like it would be, because that's always a concern when you leave behind chemicals and things like that. So like any liability, but I think it's pretty low risk. I like the idea of a leave behind and something, you can do nice for your customers. And again, at a penny, the most expensive part of the whole deal is giving them a bottle. Maybe a bottle with a label is a couple bucks. So
it makes you a little stickier, and I don't know. I think it has the potential of being a good thing.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's a great idea.
Who do we give credit to that idea for? Who said they did that?
Robin Murphy.
Robin Murphy.
Robin Murphy, smart.
So what else is going on in your world, Matt?
We're kind of coming to the end of unemployment extensions in Missouri. So the $600 ran out a while back, but there was the executive order that came through from Trump, and that was giving $300 of additional stimulus to people in Missouri. So the states had to accept that. I don't know what states did, if your state was doing that or not, but Missouri, they did. And so last week, I believe was the last week, I think the money ran dry on that program. So we have been steadily seeing, more applications come in, more people coming back to work, things like that. But it's still a very tight labor market. Like when we initially looked at this, I was thinking predicting this was going to be this great opportunity to build, rock star staff, and then we would have all this opportunity with hiring. And in some cases, my staff is excellent. It's never been better, but it's smaller than ever. Like we only have, for a company that was doing $2 million before all this, we're down to about 26 technicians right now. And we've got people in the pipeline, but that's low for us. So that's very low for us. I mean,
if you go back and look at some of our earlier smart business moves, like, we were just going to have more employees and we would know what to do with, and really talented people who aren't working in restaurants and hospitality because all of that's shut down. And then the $600 a week is like, well, wait till the end of July and then, everything will break loose.
It'll be so amazing.
Yeah. How do you explain that? Why is it still?
I don't know. So I have a friend who's a personal trainer, and I watch her on Facebook, like, just the way she thinks and talks about this sometimes. She hasn't gone back to her gym since this all started. And I get it. That's some like close one-on-one work with people, but she's still scared, and she's a healthy, like fit person. And like, there's still some amount of fear. I think so. That's one thing, using that as an example, that's one thing. I think, there's still a healthy amount of fear of what could happen. And I get that. I think that the fact that there were benefits still out there and people were willing to do that. And I think there's a lot of people still thinking that there are going to be benefits coming back. And so they're willing just to wait on the sidelines a little bit longer and live on their.
And they might be right.
They might.
We are seeing a lot of bipartisan agreement that there needs to be some more stimulus into the economy. I think the stock market kind of was showing some signs of it getting nervous about not moving forward with some of these things. And I think the fundamentals of the economy are still strong, but I think there's still 10% of the economy is still basically out of work, and that's we were down at around 3% when this started, so it's still about another 15 million people more than what we had when this started that are unemployed. So that's fundamentally not a good thing, and I think that's going to be a drag on things if we can't move things forward. One other thing that we're seeing is, and I'm really happy we're getting this equipment, is we're seeing a huge backlog of still for suppliers and manufacturers that were shut down for any period of time. There is, different industries are hit harder than others. Considering most of the products that we buy are considered essential, they never really completely shut down, but there are some chemicals and things like that go into the production that did. So we're seeing a bit of a backlog of that stuff, and that's worth discussing a little bit and thinking about, how this is going to affect your supply chain management for the next few months, and thinking about, you really can't be that same company that was ordering stuff for next week on Friday. You can't be that company anymore. Like, that's just
right.
Like just being a little bit different. We can't be as agile in our supply chain management as we used to be. We have to think that through a little bit more clearly. And there was a couple other things that were on my mind, especially.
Is that code for hoard stuff? Because you just never know when you won't be able to get it. I mean,
I don't necessarily think hoard, but I think, maybe buy 20% more of something than you did before, and maybe order a week before you did, maybe give things another week at least.
You're feeling better about it now than, I mean, I know back at the beginning of the year, like in March, there were some pretty large orders placed for supply.
So in February, so I've told this story before, but I just got back from a trip from Mexico, and down there everyone was taking it pretty seriously. In February, late February, people were wearing masks at the airport. We're flying through international airports, going to Atlanta in the U.S., and nobody's giving any F's. It's like nothing is cared about there. Like, we get in, no one even asked us where we were coming from when we went through customs. There was no questions about, had you traveled to Asia recently? Like, we literally just went through customs and, scanned our card and scanned our passport, and we're in and out. And in Mexico, not so much. I mean, they were really like, asking a lot of questions, like, had you been to these countries recently, this and that. So I got back, I was like, we're in trouble. So I ordered about $40,000 worth of supplies at that point. We still have a good amount of gloves that'll probably last us into next year. Surprisingly, though, we're getting low on shoe covers because we're using more shoe covers than I even imagined we would ever be using. And our customers like it, unfortunately, and I don't know that there's any efficacy to it, but our customers seem to like that process, so I'm kind of stuck with it now.
Well, I believe there is some efficacy. I mean, we know a lot more now than we did, 6 months ago or 3 months ago, for that matter. And the biggest risk is, the airborne transmission. But droplets do sink to the floor, and it is possible to pick it up on your feet and track it from one place to another. The whole thing, like, on abundance of caution. One of the bigger things that they're talking about now is just like the air filtration. One of the bigger risks. The weather's going to get cooler. People are going to be spending more time inside, and a lot of the HVA systems aren't really good at moving air or filtering air. And what is it? more of 11 air filters are the ones that are supposed to have the highest quality and, actually would have some efficacy in filtering out viruses. And they're recommending, if your air conditioning unit can handle it, to upgrade to the high quality air filters.
I think that there's going to be some documentation on schools and public places reopening that's going to require them to make some changes to airflow in rooms and things like that are going to help with some of that. So I don't know specifically about the filtration, but just simple things like they're saying for schools that reopen, to even in the dead of winter, keep a window open and a fan moving the air out and turn the heaters up higher. The bills, the utility bills of these schools are going to be through the roofs trying to manage this stuff. But to get back to open, my kid's school has been open for 4 weeks. There's been no cases in school, but they're fully in masks. They make them wear masks. We've got to do like a little digital check-in every day, making sure there's no symptoms. We're not sending them all masked up on Tylenol, basically, which is like the normal parent thing to do in the middle of flu season, right? There you go, something like this, yeah.
This was an article in the Wall Street Journal. I'll drop the link. That just talks about the whole indoor air quality thing being a big contributing factor, and various strategies and things you can do if you're, have HVAC units, or if it's open, windows. But you got to be, and actually they talk about air scrubbers in here as well. And, we haven't talked about that in a while, but the big devices you use for disaster recovery to kind of get, mold spores and things like that, out of the air. Air scrubbers are deemed to be efficacious as well if you have access to that equipment.
Well, I wonder if that stuff is going to be starting to get, backlogged in orders. But this whole school thing goes back to, also, this is probably another big reason we're also suffering from some staff shortages too, because families that were 2-parent households, and maybe, I have a good amount of staff that, like, maybe the woman works because she wants to, and like the husband has a good job and she comes into our office, and we have some part-time workers. Maybe she's doing 3 days a week, and now she's just not. I've got 1 or 2 people still on FFCRA for childcare, and this was their last paycheck this Friday coming up, and they don't have childcare still. So that, again, schools reopening, things like that. That's going to be if they can find ways to use this kind of data and to effectively keep schools open. But so St. Louis, all the Catholic schools have been open for the duration of this. So we've been the experiment, and Catholic schools make up a pretty big chunk of kids in school here, well over 100,000. And at this point, staff and kids, there have been under 43 cases, and almost all of those cases are at the schools that are not requiring masks. So there is some, people want to argue about masks or not masks. I'm just like, whatever gets the schools open, I'll send my kids in masks all day if I don't have to be with them all day trying to teach them, especially my 8th grader. The math stuff is like kind of hard. So I don't want to like have her know that I don't know what she's doing anymore.
On the science side of this is another more recent article, and just to kind of, earlier on, we talked about how COVID is an unprecedented event, and we don't know a lot about this novel virus, and we still don't, but there's more and more that we're figuring out. And this is really a good article from the CDC that explains about how it lives on various surfaces. And, early on, we thought that it could be viable, the virus could be viable for like up to 14 days. Now it seems like the consensus is building around that, even under ideal circumstances, it will not be viable after 7 days. So if you're cleaning a space that, somebody was sick with COVID, if they haven't been there in 7 days, then there should be little concern. But the virus stays viable on fabrics a lot longer than what we initially consumed. And this talks about special care when handling bed linens and things like that. It also kind of opens the idea of it's hard to, as a professional house cleaner, as a rule, you don't have products that are real effective on fabrics. You don't clean fabrics. I mean, you can vacuum it, but it could argue that misting or electrostatic spraying on fabric upholstery and things like that could be worth consideration.
Would it cover enough surface though? Like, because I mean, like the thing about like when it hits a metal, it kind of spreads out. Like if a droplet hits fabric, don't you think it would soak in? I guess it spreads out when it soaks in. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure, but yeah, that's
this kind of gets into the area of, novel virus and unprecedented. I don't know if there's very little of this has been scientifically proven.
I've got 4 sprayers and I've made $0 real dollars doing it. I've done it for, I've gone into some places that want it, like that are businesses like that we already serve. And I haven't really felt comfortable like charging big dollars for it because I'm like, just like I've just been charging like, the labor hours, but not necessarily marking up the equipment and stuff like that. Because I just haven't known whether I feel good about like trying to sell that process yet. And, we have a bunch of pictures on our website of us using them and things like that. But I would love for an electrostatic expert to come on that could teach us all about this. Maybe one of these manufacturers, you get them on here and really, really educate us on the efficacy of all this stuff and what would happen on fabrics and stuff.
Well, Marty will be able to give you some pointers because he's selling a lot of equipment to people who are using it for that purpose.
True, that's true. And I think I would like to learn, at that point, like where we could kind of leverage some of that. That'd be good. So, yeah, some of the opportunities I think that are out there we haven't really taken advantage of as much, just out of not wanting to feel like a snake oil salesman or feel shysty. I didn't really push those things too hard. We've offered them, but we haven't like really upcharged them like significantly. We've just charged them at labor cost, basically.
I think it made really good sense in the beginning when nobody else was doing it. If you had the equipment, then you needed to charge a good chunk of money because you couldn't do all of the work.
True.
You were the only one with a machine. It made sense. Go out there and charge as much as you can because you got to be able to get the most important ones done, jobs done. But now that how it is, I think everybody is sort of in the same boat. Nobody's really making any money doing it, but we're all kind of trying to get it done. I think we use it more for our own use than for our customers. No, I don't think. I know that's a fact.
Like in your office, making it a safer space.
Yeah, we disinfect and sign off every day on our office. That's more than we do anywhere else, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful for some of this PPP round 2 if that ever gets if these problem solver caucuses push through some legislation. Again, I'm not confident until the election's over that anything will get done, but there is some bipartisan support to do this. So, that's hopeful. If you were shut down and you basically for Q2, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this. But if you had a 50% reduction in revenue that you can demonstrate for Q2, they were talking about a second round of PPP, very little documentation. You would just basically reapply. Who knows if that's going to happen at this point?
And there, you mentioned the bipartisan, committee in the House, and
Yep.
they actually have their own page on, house.gov where quite a large number of, relatively large, I guess, congressmen, both Republican and Democrat, who have decided they're going to work together and come up with a bill that they think that can pass. The executive branch, Trump came out today saying that we need to be doing a whole lot more than what the Senate wants to do, basically contradicting his own party. Pelosi has indicated that they will do something and have some type of vote before the election. It seems, who knows what will happen from one day to the next, but, here's a lot of people kind of getting together in the middle, and there's a ton of public support behind it. So,
that's a lot.
and with the president getting behind it, telling his party to get with the program, I think everybody, the people that didn't want to do stuff for political reasons, I think they're getting squeezed. So this will be interesting. And
steps forward, one step back for us, because it'll probably include some unemployment again, which will be
Yeah.
There's about $1.5 trillion that's being proposed, and that's trillion with a T, and that's a crazy amount of money. What the normal government budget in a year is, I might be wrong on this, but I think it's normally around 3 trillion, just the annual US budget.
Yeah.
And we're just spending, the first relief bill was like 3 trillion, wasn't it?
I don't remember at this point, but
It was.
I feel like basically we're like 5 years of basically like 5 years of spending, I think is what we're at. Last time I looked of how much stimulus spending had been on this. So that's where like the Republican argument is like, look, we're pretty deep into this. Like, we're willing to do something, but like, let's not jump the shark. And then there's the other argument, like, this is unprecedented, as you like to say, like, let's not get behind the power curve here with the stimulus. So I think if something doesn't happen soon, I think we are going to see some fallout in the economy, but that's a guess, and I think, the biggest boom through all of this is consumer spending has been through the roof. So people getting God, if we were in the home improvement game, if we were actually like putting additions on people's houses or like doing that kind of labor, we would be killing it. I just had a roofer come by my place, as a friend of mine, and he's like, best year ever. People hate putting roofs on houses, but they just need something to do right now. He feels like it's like, best year he's ever had. And roofing is like, again, it's something you just don't even really want to think about until it's too late, So they're having a great year. Landscapers are in trouble because of these fires out in the West Coast. A lot of the materials that they get, a lot of the nurseries and things like that, big large nurseries are being wiped out there. So that might change. But landscapers like that, outdoor installations of sprinklers, all that kind of stuff. Consumer spending has been through the roof. And then on toys, bicycles, motorcycles, I mean, it's just crazy. So that part of it has probably been fueled a little bit by the stimulus money and people feeling comfortable that their savings is up a little bit. So that if that sentiment changes, then that could be harmful.
I have a question. You guys or Matt, you mentioned the second round of PPPs maybe coming through, something like that. Has anybody heard anything different? The recommendation had been to not do anything about filing for your PPP forgiveness yet, in the hopes that something else is going to happen by the end of the year, and maybe it'll just be forgiven without any paperwork for all of the smaller companies. Have you heard anything about that?
I know that you can file for forgiveness just because I know one friend who has, and she completed all that process. Sarah Martin did that, and it made sense for her based on how she spent the money and the way that she runs her business, and she wanted to get that basically liability off her books, because I hate looking at my QuickBooks and seeing that liability number in there too, like that.
Put a Post-it note over it. Don't worry about it.
I know, but I ran a balance sheet the other day, and I was like, oh crap, there's this big liability hanging out here.
But you got a big asset to balance it out. It doesn't.
I know.
Did Sarah's, was it processed? I mean, did
I don't think it's done yet. I think she's made the application to her bank. I know this was a couple weeks ago, and I could ask her at some point and follow up with that. But yeah,
we had different companies, and we wound up going through 3 different financial institutions for PPP funds. Out of the 3, 2 of them are not even accepting the forgiveness application yet.
I wouldn't either, because the rules are changing constantly. They may be more favorable in just a few more weeks. Now, if you knew, to the penny, you spent it all perfectly and you just wanted to get that off your books, I could understand, the feeling to want to get it done. But I mean, like Liz was saying, they could change the rules tomorrow and say, look, if you had a PPP loan less than $1 million, we're not even going to take paperwork. We're just going to forgive it because it's not worth it. It's just going to be overwhelming on these banks at some point. Like they're not even going to be able to. It's going to be crushing on them, especially if the federal government like needs like a ton of documentation. It's just going to be such a skinny down process at the end. I think it's. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a lot of grift and fraud because of that, and that's unfortunate. But I think most of the money was spent the way it was supposed to be spent.
Well, even if it's fraud, that money is going into the economy as well. So everybody's spending everything. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, fraud's bad, but that money spends too.
Yeah. Well, there was a baseball player that one of his, I remember it was NFL or Major League Baseball. I can't remember. NFL player through one of the companies he owned was involved in like $6 million of PPP fraud. And, so I think like the bigger plays like that are going to get caught. Like that's just, that's just the way it is. And I'm hopeful that, that karma catches up to people that didn't play fair with money. But I mean, honestly, like you said, it's probably such a small percentage of people that didn't. It's not worth getting hung up on who did what and who got over who.
There was a major bank that had a number of employees that were indicted for filling out false applications, and they collected millions of dollars fraudulently, and I forget which bank it was, and I guess it really doesn't matter because it was the employees.
Yeah. That's insane. Yeah, I think there is going to be some of that, and hopefully we find out again that 99% of the money was used the way it was supposed to be used, and I feel like the program was overwhelmingly a positive for most everyone that we know in our circles. I mean, it probably saved a lot of our butts and was allowed us to close where we needed to and act responsible where we needed to, or just make decisions for all this, and. I think that's been one of the I think there was some problems with the way the PPP was rolled out, but overall, I think most of us benefited in a way that we would say that was a good program and was thought out reasonably well, considering that we basically wrote that on a weekend.
Yeah, and how quickly it had to happen. I mean, gosh, I think of anything that I would have to launch myself that quickly. I would not be counting on it to be foolproof. That's for darn sure.
No.
I mean, I thought it was done really well considering how quickly everything had to go.
I would take a second round of PPP in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say no to that either.
I was having a conversation with somebody. They're like, well, I have all this money left over and it's going to be taxable. I'm like, yeah, but so let's say they take 35% of that money away. How much did you start to have before that? You have this cash left over. And because of that, your profitability was higher because you didn't have as many expenses because you had this PPP money, right? And you were still earning money and, through this. And so because of that, you have almost as much money. So for those rare people that's the case, they were kind of complaining about the taxes that they're going to pay. And I just kind of jokingly prodded them. I was like, you kind of sound like a plastic surgeon from the 80s when they were like just raking it in, like just like complaining about the taxes, like you're, there's worse problems to have. The people that had to use the PPP money all towards payroll and nothing's left, they're not going to have any tax consequences of that because there was no income to offset that payroll that they were putting out, basically. So it's all going to be relative. But I feel like that might be getting a little greedy if we.
Well, and then Well, Tom was want to say, that just don't forget that it was free money. It was still free money.
And if you look at what's being discussed now in this 1.5 trillion, and that number can change and the allocations can change, a lot of things can change, but the unemployment at 450 a week, that's not, as Matt was saying, that's not good for us. 500 billion for local governments, I guess that's good because local governments have to get their money from somewhere, and if the federal government doesn't give it to them, they're either going to be taxing us personally, or they just aren't going to be picking the trash up. So can't argue with that. Another $1,200 in stimulus, and I think that's based on 75,000 personal income or 150,000 household income. And I think the formula that's going to be prorated down if you are over that limit. So everybody might get some of that.
It's adjusted gross income too. So even if you make more than that, it's adjusted gross.
Yeah. Additional PPP funding. Don't know how, at least I can't tell from this article exactly how much that would be, but there's still PPP funds left over from the first tranche, right?
There was like $40 million left last time I read about it.
Billion. It's kind of hard to talk in terms of billions and trillions. I mean, $1 million isn't as much money as it used to be.
No.
Testing. You're not hearing, testing could be a real game changer for a lot of businesses, our businesses. I mean, the whole idea of these $5 tests where you can just do it with saliva and get a result in 15 minutes. If we can make those pervasive, that could change schools, that could change large events, that could change concerns that everybody would have. I mean, that would open up a lot of stuff even if we didn't have a vaccine.
Travel industry viable right now for sure. So that's the industry that I think is probably most people are still not comfortable like going on long trips and being away from home and like, being in a hotel and rightly so, like, especially you're out of network or whatever for healthcare in this country, like you never know what it's going to cost you if you have to go to a hospital and you're, out of your state per se. So, I was really hopeful about this early on that we would see some really innovative stuff, and maybe it's coming. I remember I shared an article about an iPhone dongle that would basically plug into a phone and allow instant testing. That had got some VC backing early on. They were hoping to have that.
Hey, Matt, your volume just went away.
Oh, no, you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now. Apple had their big, Apple Day yesterday. They don't have that dongle out yet, do they?
No, I haven't seen it.
We got a new watch and a few other things, but no.
They didn't release the COVID testing dongle, and honestly, man, I think that would be a game changer. That would allow real-time testing and really, you could basically as you go into a facility, you're like, look, just passed, and like it's 2 minutes old, right? So get on an airplane, things like that. They're doing temperature checks as you get on an airplane now, and I'm like, I just don't know how viable that is as a test because these kids in colleges aren't showing any signs of symptoms, right? They're the spreaders. So,
well, some are, but not many of them are getting. Although, actually, there are a number of college athletes that are having the residual problems with the heart enlargement and some. I mean, there's just so many nasty things that this thing does to you that nobody really knows what the long-term health implications are going to be.
Yeah, I was trying to understand an article about COVID. I was sharing it. My dad's a doctor, and they're basically thinking that it's actually attacking a different system that we normally don't really think about. I'd have to share it. But normally you think of this the way that the body reacts to infection one way. Anyway, it actually did a good job of explaining it. It was. And even to my dad, he's like, yeah, this is like new theory in medicine. He's like, this is stuff that's probably come out since I was in medical school, and we don't, this is all fairly new. Even doctors have been practicing for a while. The system they were talking about was not something that was talking about this being new and novel. We really, our understanding of medicine is developing rapidly. Even so, we think we know all this stuff, but it's like. This is proving to be, show us how little we really do know and how much more we can know. So, yeah, that's a good point. We don't know what's going to happen. University of Missouri, though, is a good example. It has about 20,000 students on campus, undergrad. I think about 1,500 of them are actively infected right now. So it's, it just spreads like wildfire through these campuses. But there haven't been any fatalities on campus from any students. So, I don't know. That's been kind of big news here as to how pervasive it's been at the university level.
Here's an article that it's pretty deep, but it gets into
the Brady-Kynan system. I didn't want to even mispronounce it, but yeah, this is exactly one of the articles that I had read. Thank you. Good catch.
Yeah, it's scary when you really think about what this has the potential of doing to your body.
Yeah. So this Brady-Kynan system, though, what's good is though if they identify this, there's 3 or 4 drugs that actually work well for Brady-Kynan reactions that they could probably start testing in mass. They're fairly inexpensive, and So I'm not an expert on this, but I read a lot about this stuff too. And it looks like, Tom, you're reading some of the same stuff that I am. Basically, and it talked about why vitamin D probably is effective and just getting out and getting some sunlight more. And then the fact that we cooped ourselves up in our houses and stuff like that may not be the best solution. Maybe go out, sit in a chair under some sunlight, get some vitamin D is going to be healthy for you. It talked about why that was important. And but there was also some hope in that article about some treatments. But what I was going to also talk about with what's going to probably happen at these schools is they're going to cancel spring breaks. I think they should just keep the kids there, like no fall break. Just have them go to school until November, and then before you send them home, let the infections burn through at the campuses. If you're going to bring them back, just deal with the consequences. That I think is what I think a lot of schools are canceling fall break and things like that.
Yeah. The schools are. I mean, it's a ever-changing thing. They're like, was it the Big Ten football conference decided today that they're going to play football this year after canceling, all their games. So
yeah, I think most of us are ready to get back to our lives on some level, and we just have to accept some risks. But yeah, I think I read that too, that they were going to, that some of the conferences, Pac-12 still hasn't announced they're going to play though. So.
You see what Leslie's got here, 14-year-old son on a feeding tube and using a walker post-COVID. So, I mean, there are people of all ages have been affected, especially with, other, underlying conditions.
Absolutely. I don't want to get this, it's not, I'm not signing up for the vaccine trials yet either, but, anyway, yeah.
Really scary though, because for the longest time they were saying, you really didn't have to worry about it if you weren't, over 65 or didn't have a compromised system. But, now we're hearing more about these younger people and, 14-year-old, God darn, that's just tragic.
Yeah, that is scary. And
the thinking is it's going to get worse this fall and this winter. But, the opinions all over the board. There's other people that are pointing at Sweden right now, and they're faring a lot better than countries like, Italy and Spain, who shut down hard. And, in some regards, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason to this. This was interesting, though. If you looked at confirmed infections going all the way back, remember like April, this was when everything was going crazy in New York, and it got better, and then it got worse this summer because there was a lot more testing. If you look at the testing in the summer, there's a ton more testing. Back in April, there wasn't a lot of testing. So the actual belief that the actual cases, there was a blip in April, then it went down, and then it went up, but a lot of the projections have it going up higher than what it was, in April when it was really bad. And it's contingent upon, are people going to wear masks or not? Or if everything starts easing, this is the other thing. People are getting a lot more comfortable. The schools are opening back up. I know fall sports in my area was canceled, and now, they're playing again. And, my son plays a horn in the band, and he has a mask that has a slit in it, and they put something over the bell of the horn. I mean, it's kind of wacky stuff that they're doing, but they're,
I think
torpedoes, let's go for it.
I think the mask wearing is important. I think it's been proven to work, but it's become a sign of political affiliation. That's unfortunate. hopefully we can kind of come together with some common sense things that we can do to kind of get back to normal, and not make them a symbol of our political identity. But yeah, you look at that line that goes steep. I assume that's the one that
that's if the easing. The green line is if people wear masks. The projected line is kind of the belief that they won't. They've got some numbers here where mask use observed is like in the mid 40s.
It's about 40% is what they're saying is that the observed mask use is. And so I sold my RV last week, and I was out in St. Charles County, which is like the adjacent county to where I'm at in St. Louis County. And it's a little more rural, definitely more Republican-leaning area. And no one was wearing masks. And when I sold the RV, I mean, it's like a symbol of, like, I had a bandana on, and like I was getting looks like I was like a crazy person, out there. And so it's definitely different area by area. It's a less popular area out there, and probably is less likely to have close contact with people. So I get their thought process. I'm not trying to, get into their politics or why that they don't. But long term, I think these lines would probably look better, and we'd be able to get back to normal economy if people would normalize that. My 6-year-old came back from school today, and she walked all the way home from school about a half mile and was still wearing her mask. And she walks in the door, I was like, you can take that off once you cross the street from the school. She's like, I just forgot it's on. If a 6-year-old can wear it all day and then forget, just kind of get used to it, I think we all could try. And that's just an opinion, and I'm hopeful that people do. But we've had good luck with our school system reopening, and I think anecdotally that's fairly strong evidence in St. Louis. I talk about the cases for the Catholic schools. We've been a good experiment so far.
I've been surprised at the restaurants all opening, and that seems to not be causing too much trouble either. Hey, Tom, can you put this link to the graph that you have up right now in the comments?
Sure.
Yeah, there's some anecdotal evidence that where they read people that have been infected are X amount of times more likely to eat out, but it's not a cause and effect link. It's just sort of I don't know what that kind of link is. Anyway. So, but a lot of the contact tracing does come back to the nightclub scenes and the close contact stuff like that. St. Louis has still got 11 o'clock curfew on the bars and stuff like that here. I'm sure that's hard on those businesses though, but it seems to have had some effect.
I was wondering what they're doing with the air, in the hot areas, Phoenix. If they have these places open, they got to be running the air conditioning, right? I can't imagine that it's 105 degrees and they're packing them into restaurants or clubs or whatever without air.
I guess, but the good news is that a lot of those spaces, since it is so warm there in the summer, they're going to be able to be open all year. Where a lot of these restaurants now that are relying on outside patios with fans and stuff like that in all the other country, I think it's going to be tough on restaurants if we start to see these big spikes again. So I think this gets back to my business, and what we're doing is we're still projecting that we're following these protocols and doing these things for the safety of our customers. I know some companies I've talked to, they're like, well, my employees were uncomfortable with the mask. They're not wearing them anymore. That's your personal choice. I think for me, I want to be able to project that we're doing these things still for the long term through this, and give our customers confidence that we have a very strong COVID-19 protocol in place. And, I still think we should be training our staff on COVID-19 and taking the threat seriously. And I think that will pay off in the long run in capital as far as just confidence with your business and being able to get a higher price from your current customers because they trust you, versus trying somebody new in this environment.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. You think we'll be wearing masks this time next year?
I don't know. God, I hope that there is. I hope that there is a lot more progress by this time next year. I think
there'll absolutely be progress. The number of drugs are in the pipeline, and there's a lot of green sprouts out there, if you will, the things to be about. But, you made the comment that, well, I'm not going to be signing up for any, I'm not going to be the first one in line to, get a COVID shot. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be feeling that way. So even when we have vaccines, if, not enough people are taking it, then it really isn't going to matter much.
If we do a phase 3 study and they're showing, it gets to phase 3 and they've done it on enough people and, showing that there's not been a lot of side effects, I'll do it. I'm just not signing up to be a volunteer in the initial studies. Yeah. So
do that.
Back to your questions on masks and into next year. I actually see some benefits long term for mask use in a society that I could see this actually, like cold and flu season, being more of a courtesy. Like if you have a runny nose, you wear a mask in public. Like in Asia, that's how they do it, like as a courtesy to other people.
Sure.
I could see us really cutting down on the spread of flu and really making. But the other thing that I think is when people don't really realize is a lot of the facial recognition software doesn't work when you're wearing a mask. So if you're like a big anti-government person, I would think you would love wearing a mask because then
I pick my phone up and I can't get it to, open anymore. I've got
no, none of that stuff works. So all this facial recognition software that, like, my city has tons of cameras up with all this facial recognition software all over the place. Like you can't go anywhere on a public street and there not be a camera and there's some place monitoring your every move. If you're afraid of Big Brother, which, whatever that means to you, I would think mask use would actually be comforting because then this stuff can't track you. So anyway, there's a couple ways to go with that. I think in a year, mask use should still be prevalent.
Sure. South America, one of the byproducts of COVID is everybody was being more cautious, wearing masks. Flu season was almost non-existent.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice if 30,000 people that die of flu in the United States, cut that number in half because we were being a little bit more cautious and again, not sending our kids to school drugged up on Tylenol and we're all guilty of this.
Okay, we are at the top of the hour though. Past it by 2 minutes. Sorry, guys. Anything we need to do to wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. Just wanted to kind of have a quick discussion about what's going on, where things are, sentiments.
This was good. Cleaning business today. If you haven't subscribed, you guys know the drill. I'm sure you've all subscribed, maybe multiple times. If so, thank you. Much appreciated. There's a link to our resources. Matt, as always, thank you so much for joining us and making this an informative and useful discussion.
And good luck with your new house there, Matt.
Yeah, no kidding. And you might even be able to get a few more wings in before dinner.
Probably taking kids out now, so we're
okay. Well, tomorrow on the spot, we're going to be talking about what's the exact title? Overcoming
obstacles.
I want to say adversity.
And if you stayed to the end of today's Facebook Live, the initials are SN of our secret guest.
SN tomorrow, 5 o'clock. See you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.